When I was a cam girl, I would have many guys message me saying they were my cousin or something. They were not, just trying to play out a fetish, and I wasn't into it. So then one day a guy, in the main chat, said that he knew me and his name was AJ, fake name. I was like, yeah right, I've only ever known one AJ, if it's true what's my name? And sure enough, he put my real first name right there in the chat. We were in youth group in church together almost a decade before that. He became a regular.
My much younger brother was getting married, had a bachelor party at a strip club with a dozen or so high school friends. After about an hour there, a rather ordinary-looking stripper comes on stage, takes off her top, and our tables of guys goes wild, standing and applauding and hollering. I have no idea what is going on. The stripper looks through the stage lights, her eyes get really big, she grabs her top and runs off stage to the back. Bouncers come running over to our table, thinking we're starting trouble. Nope, it turns out all of the guys in his high school class had a history class with her a few years back. She later came out and talked with us, said she never thought she'd see someone, let alone 12, she knew. It was in the next town over.
I'm a stripper. My friend's dad came in. I hadn't seen him or my friend since high school. I accidentally asked him for a lap dance before I could tell who it was. He said no, and I realized who it was as I walked away. He came in a few more times and avoided eye contact with me. When I was on stage, he would look away. Another story, my first day as a stripper, I saw two guys from my high school. We chatted, then they both paid for lap dances.
We surprised a friend from university that was working at a strip club to pay for her studies. She just noticed us, winked at us, and did her show as usual. 0 fucks of any kind were given by anyone.
I was a stripper back in the day. Halfway through a stage show, realized that my flatmate's brother and his friends were there. That's how I was outed. Nothing much changed.
Last semester I ran a massage service, and I had this one client I particularly liked because he was so friendly, positive, and just smart as fuck. I never asked my clients for their last names or too much about what they did for work, and the only thing I really knew about this guy was that he was in a STEM field. Well, fast forward to one existential crisis and a college major change later, and this semester I have to take chemistry. Lo and behold, that really smart client is now my professor. Neither of us is currently acknowledging it, but I can tell that we still feel that bit of connection we did when he would come see me for massages. It was massage, regardless of whether I'm a licensed professional. Giving someone a HJ after working out their pain, tension, knots, etc. for an hour doesn't mean you didn't massage them. I sympathize for those who are victims of sexual assault and harassment. I face the same sort of things with my business, and that's never okay, but massage therapy is and probably always will be associated with sex work, and people who engage in either endeavor should be aware of the risks involved. The people who conduct sexual assault against other people are responsible, not me or anyone else who does sex work. I am not going to call my service just a hand job service or whatever else people want me to say, because a massage service is the most accurate phrasing for the operation I was running. I did not at any time claim to be a licensed professional, and I was always honest with clients about it. Yes, I am aware that it's illegal. Also, for the sake of massage therapists, please do not assume they're sex workers.
Not a sex worker, but delivered a pizza to a known sex worker, and at the same moment I was about to knock on the door, a relative opens the door and watches me holding the pizza up to him. I couldn't do anything but laugh. He laughed too, maybe out of embarrassment, and as soon as the sex worker understood what was going on, she also started laughing. Never mentioned this moment to anyone who knows my relative. And he is grateful for that to this day.
I had a classmate who was a stripper, and she was very open about loving it when people she knew came to see her at work and let her dance for them. She thought it was intimate in a fun, friendly way.
Kinda, sorta along the same lines, I guess. Once a friend wanted me to go to a strip club with him located outside a small town in Alabama. A young, really young looking girl got on the stage and he told me, "Look at her. Isn't she the prettiest thing you've ever seen?" I said, "Yeah, but she seems like she's too young to be working here." "Don't worry, she's 18. "How do you know?" I asked. "She's my niece." I felt uncomfortable after that.
I was not a sex worker at all, but I was a fine art model for a college for a while. There were so many people that I went to high school with that entered those classes over the 2 years I worked there. Usually they wouldn't say anything and I wouldn't say anything, and I would just get naked and pose for 3 hours. Sometimes we would chat after, but sometimes we would ignore each other and pretend it didn't happen.
In the mid-90s my friends took me to a strip club for my bachelor party. A few cocktails and a few stage shows in and out walks an ex-girlfriend of mine. She was stunningly beautiful, but bat crap crazy. My friends desperately tried to get her to give me a lap dance, offering her 5 times the normal rate, but she refused. She said it would be too much of an emotional strain for her considering how intense our relationship was and ended. She ended up sitting with us between her floor shows and lap dances just chatting. She had gotten actually married and this was a way for her and her husband to save for a house. About halfway through the evening, one of the other dancers grabbed me and pulled me up on stage, whispered into my ear, "Are you wearing underwear?" which I affirmed. She pulled my pants down, sat me on a chair mid-stage, and another girl loosely tied my hands behind my back. Each girl took turns giving me a lap dance up on the stage. Turns out my ex paid them all for a lap dance and arranged the entire thing. Funny end to the story, after that event I was at work on the sales floor of a local big box retail chain working, and in walks my ex. We chatted and half a good laugh. My lunch came and I went out into the mall towards the food court, and my ex comes up besides me with a bit of a panicked look in her eye. She slides her arm under mine and leans in and kisses me on the cheek, saying, "Let's go get that hot dog now." Befuddled, I walk with her towards the food court and she proceeds to tell me one of her regulars was in the mall and he was stalking her. She told him she was married and he didn't believe her, so I got to play the part of her husband. I walked her out to her car after the hot dog and a leisurely chat to make sure she was safe, and never heard from her again.
Not a worker though. Funny story, one night my best mate was in town, lived in another state, used to live here. We went out clubbing and eventually decided to go to the strippers. Pay our money, and as we enter my friend notices a stripper laying on her back spread eagle for a guy. Highly drunk he yells out, "Heller, how good is this?" The stripper hears and notices my friend, sits up and yells, "What are you doing in here?" My friend instantly went and sat in the corner, proper embarrassed. Turns out it was his cousin.
There was a girl I went to high school with who was basically a walking stereotype. She fit so well into the archetypal, blonde, mold that you might swear it was an act if you didn't know better. She was also fucking mean. This girl was a power bitch and wasn't really nice to anybody as far as I'm able to remember. People orbited her because she was hot and had everything. She never really bothered me because I did my best to be invisible, but the handful of interactions I ever had with her left me feeling unpleasant. Turns out she wound up being a pretty lucrative stripper later in life. I bought a lap dance from her, and while being nice as part of the job, it really did feel like in those brief few minutes that she did have a genuine personality shift. She was way more laid back, you could even hear it in her voice. She even commented about how she wasn't a bitch like I used to be, and I have nicer tits. It was a genuinely fun interaction. She seemed happier in comparison to the person I remembered.
I had a friend who was a lifestyle dome. For those unfamiliar with BDSM lingo, a female dominant, not professionally, just personally for fun. She is into a lot of freaky stuff, but working in the public, she is very secretive about her identity. No pictures of herself online, and very, very cautious before meeting anyone. Well, she has had guys message her asking her for some pretty nasty stuff, like bottling her piss and selling it to them, or even making a shit sandwich on one occasion. Yes, an actual shit sandwich. Well, the fucked up part is, she messages with these guys, and they, without her asking, reveal all sorts of personal details about themselves, like where they live or work, and they would send her photos of themselves. On more than one occasion she has run into one of them at work, and they had no idea it was her. She recognized them and think to herself, "This guy that begged me to make him lick his own cum off my feet, and he has no idea who the fuck I am." It would just make her feel even more powerful. Although she remained perfectly professional in their interactions, but may have acted a little bitchier than she normally would because she knew they liked it. For the record, she never sold any of these things. They were just requested by people she was chatting with. She is not comfortable with these things, like the shit sandwich, but it doesn't stop people from making these requests.
Not exactly someone I knew well, but I went on a Tinder date with a guy, went to see a movie, nothing exciting. Nice enough guy but no chemistry, it also didn't stay in contact. Opened my hotel door to my client one night to see him standing there, didn't react to the fact that I knew him because there's not a single person who knows what I do. Spent the entire booking telling me how sad he was we never caught up again, and how he knew it was me when he saw my photos. Photos were blurred and face cropped out, but I've got distinguishing hair, and how it must be fate. Played dumb the whole time because this guy knew my actual identity, and eventually asked him to leave because of how uncomfortable his behavior was making me.
My mom was a stripper when I was in elementary school. A 22-year-old guy came in and paid for a lap dance, and my mom recognized his last name and asked if he knew Ruth. I have no earthly idea why she would ask him given what she suspected. He got weirded out and said that Ruth was his mom, and my mom said that his mom was her daughter's third-grade teacher. He then begged her not to tell his mom where he was. Apparently my mom just laughed and said she didn't want her daughter's teacher knowing that she was there either. I hated that teacher. She was such a jerk to me because we were poor and my mom always dressed slutty. I'm glad her kids weren't as uptight as she was.
I was in the process of booking with a sex worker and she sent me a few face pics that she didn't post in her ad. That's when I realized she was actually my cousin. I politely told her that I couldn't meet and never said anything to anyone, including her.
So most sex workers screen our clients. That means we have their personal info to run a background check and make sure we're not about to get arrested or murdered. It also eliminates the chance of a creepy friend trying to secretly book us.
Was in college and had a pair of residents on my wing who were both cam girls. Found out from rumors that were eventually confirmed when I had to help both of them get back up to their room after calling the paramedics because they were passed out drunk outside our residence hall. Came into their room and saw the camera set up, dildos, and lingerie sets pieces, just laying out in the open. I also found out that night that they had a pet kitten in the room, another rumor I heard about them that ended up being true, but also heard they abused it pretty bad, poor thing. Anyways, as we made it up to their wing, one of the girls came to just as we entered their room and tried to play with the pet kitten. She rolled off the bed from her side, stumbled across the room in just a few steps, and ended up falling face first into the makeshift litter box they had set up for their cat. Cat shit and cat litter flung everywhere. Our campus PD was so confused when they showed up to find sex toys and cat litter everywhere. Their dorm room nearly looked like a crime scene. What a time college was. What a time.
Not a sex worker, but found out a girl from high school that I had a crush on was a stripper. It was my buddy's bachelor party. We load up in a van and head about an hour away to a better strip club. We get in and settle at a table. About 30 minutes in, I get a tap on the shoulder and this sexy ass chick hops in my lap. She calls me by the nickname I had in high school and hugs me. She was always tomboyish in high school, never wore makeup, always competed well in gym, kinda nerdy, quiet, and reserved, but always very pretty if you thought about it. I didn't recognize her for a full minute. It was a fun reunion. It was a full nude spot and she gave no fucks during her stage performance. Really seeing everything. I really should have tried to pursue it in HS. But I was a dumbass back then.
Other way around. When I turned 22 or 23 for my birthday, we went out drinking and ended up at a strip club. Stripper was making her rounds on stage to everyone sitting at the pit. She jumped on me and says my name excitedly. Only then I realized it was an employee of mine. Made sense why she couldn't work nights.
I worked in a brothel in my hometown. Before the brothel, I worked at a pharmacy owned by a man I got along especially well with. We had a very close friendship and mutual feelings for one another, except he was married and so we addressed the feelings but never acted on them. He always said he wished he had a time machine so he could go back in time and be with me, and that whoever I dated would be the luckiest man in the world, etc. One day at the brothel some dude booked me and I accepted the booking. When I got in the room I noticed he was my old boss's son I had met a few times when he had come to see his dad. He said he had been fantasizing over me since he had met me, which was weird because in the pharmacy I never looked decent, and it was so weird sleeping with him. He had the same smile and eyes as his dad and it really tripped me out. He became sorta besotted by me. He found me on Facebook and would ask me when I was working, or if he could come over. It was weird because he knew I had feelings for his dad and really didn't care. One day he was pestering me so one of my coworkers suggested I say to him I will agree to have a booking with him if he brings in a pair of his father's dirty underwear. He was freaked out but actually considered it. I told him I was joking and wouldn't be seeing him again. I felt guilty and weird, it was too close to home. One of my friends still works for his dad and he can be difficult to work for. She always says once she quits she will say, I quit, and Catcube fucked your son. Guys from school and stuff would come in but generally I would avoid them or just decline if I knew they were choosing me because they knew me. It's just easier not to mix things. Clients don't seem to understand that it's completely transactional and that I'm not interested in talking to them for free.
Attending a bachelor party a long time ago. The stripper came in, said hello, and went to the bathroom to fix herself up. She peeked out the door and called one of them over. Turns out, she went to high school with us, a couple of years younger. She called a friend to replace her and she left.
About 10 years after I graduated college, my fraternity had a reunion during homecoming. One of my fraternity brothers was walking around with a very pretty woman in tow, introducing her to everyone as his fiancée. This guy was not a ladies' man in any way, in fact he was the kind of guy who had no luck at all with women despite his family's wealth. So I thought good for him. The kid couldn't get a date, and now look at him. But then I started looking closer at the woman. She kind of bore a resemblance to this stripper I remembered from a few years ago. The druggy one who used to give handjobs in the champagne room. But I dismissed it. Couldn't be her. Later at the party, she pulled me into an empty room, looked at me pleadingly and said, "Please don't tell him."
I don't really qualify as a sex worker. I'm a guy who fucks women on camera for porn producers, so I'm not paid and I don't have customers. But one time I showed up to a shoot for a blowbang and ran into the guy who owned and operated the CrossFit place I went to. We acknowledged the connection on the set and performed our roles, but basically never spoke of it again and resumed our normal trainer-customer dynamic after that. He was married at the time, but I think they were open, not that it was any business of mine.
This happens a lot. My ex would hire girls for threesomes, for birthdays, etc., and there were a few girls we got to know pretty well. And yes, it happens both by accident and on purpose when people find out the sort of work they do. From what I gather, it's awkward, but a job's a job. Thanks for watching Reddit with Husky. Hit the subscribe button for more video, and let me know in the comment whether you know anyone personally working as a sex worker.